All right, welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, D-Palm. You can follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. If you're going to talk about the show on social media, please use the hashtag UDPod so I can find you, say thank you for listening, and all that fun stuff. Now that you found the show, make sure you hold on to the show. Subscribe in the iTunes Store. Leave a 5-star review once you've subscribed, and I'll read whatever you wrote on the air. I did it last week with my Patriot fan friends, and I'll do it every week that you leave a 5-star review. I will read on the air, no questions asked. We're brought to you, of course, by the MTR Network, MovieTrailerReviews.net. It's a great place to find comic book news, movie news, television reviews, politics, gaming, and of course now, finally, sports. I do want to give our first sponsor a shout out, Tweaked Audio. If you're listening to me right now, make sure you listen to me the best way possible. Go to tweakedaudio.com. Get all of your audio needs met there. Make sure when you're checking out, use the code reviews and checkout, get 33% off, and make sure you take advantage of the free lifetime warranty. I go through earbuds more often than I'd like to admit, so this has definitely been something I've taken advantage of. You should too. And also, because again, we're in this year, if you're a black woman with a business or event you want promoted on our network for free, email us at bwbusiness@mtrnetwork.net. Hashtag Black Woman Shout Out. You get shouted out on whatever network show fits your product the best. If it's a sports thing, something I can get on there, it'll be definitely on UD Pod. It'll always be Insanity Check and everywhere else that we do our shows. That is the formalities. I am back here, guys, off and running. We've got another great guest here, and this is interesting because in a vacuum, this is a guest who is legitimately she's someone who has a legitimate sports job. She's not just talking to you guys once a week. Right now, she is the sports reporter at WEWS ABC in Cleveland. Lauren Brill. Hi, Lauren.
Hey, what's up?
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing really well. And this is interesting. Like I said, this is a get for the podcast, but for me, it's like talking to someone who I've legitimately known since I was 18 because we went to college together.
Yeah. It's not like someone you've known since you're 18. It is someone you've known since you're 18.
It's crazy, but it's been amazing to watch because we graduated and, you kind of lose touch with people, but it's easier to watch people because of the internet, because of social media, and watching you just kind of latch onto this career and just take off like a rocket and watch how much hard work you put in without sounding like paternalistic or weird. Like, I couldn't be prouder of it or you to say I know you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so sweet. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So before you got to Cleveland, you were up in Buffalo. What was it like working in that? I have a lot of friends who are from Buffalo, so I have like kind of a unique or a specific take on the media market there. What was it like working there for you?
So when I got the job in Buffalo, I had never been to Buffalo besides my interview, so I had no idea what to expect. But I ended up really liking Buffalo. As cold as the city is, the people are so warm and so welcoming, and everybody really has a great camaraderie surrounding the sports teams. So it's coming from New York City, the area where I grew up, everyone is a fan of different teams. Some people like the Jets, some people like the Giants, some people like the Yankees, some people like the Mets. But in Buffalo, everybody loves Buffalo teams. Everyone's all about the Bills. They're all about the Sabres. So it's really cool to see a city really come together for its sports teams. No matter if they win or lose, they are still diehard fans. So being a sports reporter there and living there was actually a really awesome experience given the camaraderie and the people and the way that they come out for their sports teams.
I hear you. And you left Buffalo and you ended up in another market that, while sharing the cold and the passion for the sports teams, also shared historically not some of the greatest moments going to Cleveland. What were the thoughts in taking that new adventure and heading to Cleveland?
Yeah, I thought, how cool would it be to cover LeBron James in his prime? They say NBA athletes hit their prime around 28. So, I mean, he was, I guess, 30, I think, when I got here. So it seemed really fitting for me to come here at this time and cover someone like him. That was the big draw, and obviously it didn't disappoint. Some people joke that LeBron came back, they didn't win. Francona came, they didn't win yet. And then I come to Cleveland and the Indians go to the World Series and the Cavs break the streak. So I wouldn't mind taking credit for it.
Well, you know what? On this show, you get all the credit, 100%.
Yeah. And the Monsters won in the AHL too. So I mean, there was a lot of winning going on. As soon as I came to town, I was like, "What drought are people talking about? All you guys do is win here." Minus the Browns, of course. It's been a little rough couple seasons with the Browns, but it's been definitely an exciting time to be in Cleveland. And this is another city where people are really supportive of their sports teams and diehard fans. So when the Cavs won, it was just cool to be in the city, and it was a special time to just see all the people, not only that live here now, but people who are from here come back and come to the parade and support the team and support the city and really celebrate in the championship and the success that the team had. And it brought a lot of great stories. I mean, I did a story about a bunch of kids during the World Series. They decided they would give away hamburgers to homeless people or just people who looked like they needed a bite to eat for every year that the city was in a championship drought. So it just brought the city together, and it brought a lot of kind acts in a very unexpected ways. That was really cool to be a part of and really cool to report on and witness.
So you got a really unique viewpoint because you got to walk into the transformation into, like, if you will, Believe Land, and like kind of the documentaries getting made and this kind of revitalization of the sports atmosphere. Yeah. Has it been, and I know you have really no point to compare it to, but how would you describe the average Cleveland sports fan now? Is it just, because for years they were kind of the butt of the jokes. I always say, what only thing that could make the Atlanta Braves win a World Series was Cleveland outlanding Atlanta. Like, I just think it's the only way it could ever happen.
You know, I mean, everyone used to say it when the Browns would mess up or when a bad play would happen, that's so Cleveland, that's so Cleveland. and they couldn't say that after the Cavs won because they came back from a 3-1 deficit. The way they won was so exciting. And it was so not Cleveland that it kind of changed that. And I heard some people joke, you know, kids today are going to think that Cleveland's known for winning. Like, they're going to be so confused. And so that bitter attitude, that attitude of, we'll wait until next year, it went from waiting till next year to I can't wait till next year. The excitement is a little bit different than in years past where it's like a disappointment and they're hoping next year's better. Now it's like, let's do it again next year.
Well, see, you're a new Cleveland transplant, but you're already like name dropping the AHL team. You're buying. I can hear it in your voice how excited you are.
It's cool, man. I don't care if it's a high school team or a professional team. Being around winning is always fun.
It is. Do you think that the sting of? No, I'm not gonna ask about stings. I'm gonna ask a more fun question. How often are 3-1 jokes a part of your life now?
3-1. I don't know. I don't hear that many. But you remember the Indians were up 3-1 and lost.
Oh, so that puts a little water on it.
Like, so I don't know if too many people are making jokes about it just because the reverse happened not too many months later.
Right. Well, one of the reasons that I really wanted to have you on is because you and I kind of floated around the same story in that, like, you did something very impressive with it, and I interviewed the author of the GQ story, the Concussion Diaries, about Zach Easter. And while I don't know if you heard it, but the interview I did with Reed was actually pretty interesting for me, just because it was a chance for me to verbalize some of the things that had happened to me and the guys that I had seen, and it was interesting to bounce it off of someone else. But your story that you caught up with was with Zach's girlfriend, Allison Epperson. And can you just tell our listeners just a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Allison Epperson goes to school in Cleveland. She goes to Case Western. So when I read his story, it was obviously, you know, an incredible story that he wrote, and I wanted to do the story from her perspective. She offered a Cleveland connection, and also I had recently lost my ex-boyfriend, who was a close friend to this till he died, and he had a very complicated post-football relationship. I mean, he played in college at Louisville and then was an All-American in high school, and he really struggled after playing football. So there was just a lot of parallels and a lot of similarities her and I shared. So I really understood her perspective, and I knew that there was a story to be told from her perspective. And she was the one that he opened up to first. She was the one who knew that he had CT, or that he thought he had CT first. And she saw it from a very unique position because he was willing to be vulnerable with her, whereas he wasn't as willing to be vulnerable with other people. So she had that very unique perspective of really kind of going through that journey with him. And then after he had passed, she felt like it was her mission to continue to spread awareness about CTE and to continue to educate people about the dangers of concussion. So it was, for me, and it was something that I personally related to. And then on another level, it was someone who also was so close to someone throughout their battle that I thought she had a very unique perspective and a unique journey to share.
Yeah, I'm going to link, obviously, the story in the show notes. I thought it really got to me because as someone who played football and who has these very legitimate concerns, I never really thought about the people around it.
Yeah.
And it gave me such a great fresh eyes, if you will.
Yeah.
To look at it, because for so often people disregard, people will disregard the research, disregard, say, you're trying to quote unquote kill football, which I've explained numerous times. No one's trying to do. We're just trying to make it so that football doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
And you gave me the opportunity to say, to the people who would just say, oh, you're an enemy of football, says, I'm advocating for players who didn't get a chance to speak. And now you've got people advocating for the families who are left behind, which I just think adds a layer of gravitas, and it really brings the story home.
And what was so interesting about his story is that he left these journals behind to really document what he went through. And he loved the sport. He grew up loving football. He came from a football family. And I think Allison, too, loved football. And she says she still watches the game, but she cringes at the same time because every time she sees someone get hit, she gets nervous because you don't know the long-term repercussions, because it's different for each person. Just because someone gets 5 concussions doesn't mean they're going to get CTE, but it could mean they could. They just don't know. They don't have enough information. But it was very interesting, all the information that he left behind so that people could do research. And he was trying to leave behind hope for somebody else.
Yeah, I thought that, I talked to Reed about this when I had him on, is just being able to capture his voice so well, and the self-awareness it took to capture those, to write that down. It's just, and I've done it on here, which I guess counts as some sort of record, but I've talked about my personal experiences, and it's just, it's so important to hear a voice that's not your own echoing similar action. So if this made one person say, maybe my friend isn't okay, or maybe I need to not lie about that last concussion, then I think it was 1,000% worth it. And I just think more stories like this need to get out there and need to be heard. So on behalf of football players, thank you for doing it.
Yeah, and also what she said CTE Hope is working on in collaboration with experts and doctors is a saliva test, so that there is a actual scientific conclusive test that could say whether or not someone has a concussion. So they're trying to do it through saliva, so that if someone gets a concussion, they can right there on the sideline test the saliva whether or not it is a concussion. Because right now it's basically in the hands of coaches and athletic trainers to just determine based on symptoms whether or not someone has a concussion. So it's really easy for a kid to be like, oh no, I'm not dizzy, or I feel fine.
And not just a kid, it's usually people making that call have a vested interest in that kid being on the field.
Yes. So they want to take the question out of the picture. They want to take the decision making out of the picture and just have a blanket scientific test that says you have a concussion, you need to stay out. So that's what they're working on through CTE Hope, which is a foundation that they set up in Zach's honor.
That's awesome. Well, again, I thought it was a great story, and again, it's linked in the show notes here. We're going to get a little of the news that's going on, and despite my best efforts, the events of February 5th are still in the news. It wasn't enough that, as I get reminded every day, the Falcons blew a 28-3 lead against the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. But now the city of New Orleans is getting back on the hate train. If you may recall, we reported the night after the Super Bowl that New Orleans fans were spotted sending up fireworks upon the Falcons losing the Super Bowl, because that's the kind of hate we're dealing with here. They've now unveiled their Falcons-themed float for the Bacchus Parade, which will be occurring on the 26th of February. It is called The Young and the Ringless, and the article that I'm reading says that it's a clear representation of Matt Ryan. I personally don't see it. I think that it's a poor representation of someone who doesn't have a ring.
Sports fans were never known to be good sports.
This isn't even them though. This is like getting beat up in the playground after school and then having someone else hit you in the back of that afterwards. Like, there's no need for it. We've already been beaten. And the thing is, as a Falcons fan, I can do nothing but just accept these L's.
Well, I mean, there has to be some sort of satisfaction, and he did make it to the Super Bowl, right? I mean, I'm sure Browns fans would have called that a great victory. So,
You don't know me. You don't know me very well. It was. And I'm not really talking about it yet. I'm really not. I did my reaction pod the day after the game, and I said I wasn't going to talk about it. And yeah, I'm not ready to have a civil discourse about the events of the 5th of February. So,
I was torn in that game because I had done a great story with a wide receiver on the Patriots, and I had done a great story on a wide receiver with the Falcons. So that game
well,
was.
that's not torn. That's what we call a win-win. That's called hedging your bets. That's not
I did
torn.
a story with Taylor Gabriel, and he was one of the nicest, most open and emotional people that I've ever interviewed. So I really enjoyed doing a story on him. So I actually, even though I had done a story on Chris Hogan with the Patriots, so I was happy for Chris. Chris is a really hard worker, but I was still bummed out for Taylor. And also, Steve Cargisle, who went to Columbia,
Yeah,
is
I know.
out with the Patriots.
I
So
know.
his second Super Bowl ring with the team.
Can we not shout out Cargisle, please? Can we just have one moment where I don't get reminded that he, like, because he comes up on the Facebook feed and he just rings. I'm like, I hate him. I'm happy for him, but I hate him. It just hurts. It burns deep, man.
How many Columbia grads have Super Bowl rings? Come on.
Well, there's the owner of the team.
Robert Kraft.
He's got
Okay.
a couple.
Okay, so where do we go from there?
Steve's got 2. So
Got Robert Kraft.
I can comfortably say 7.
All right. So now we've got Robert Kraft and Cargisle. Where else do we got?
I do feel like that's it. Yeah, you're right. Good for Steve. I can be happy for Steve individually, but also be sad because I'm gonna ask you a question. What happened to that Taylor Gabriel piece? Did it ever run?
It did run. I did this story when
You
he
did?
was Brown. Taylor was a Browns player.
Okay. So it got to run anyway. Okay.
Yeah. No. So we ran it when he was here. So I did a story on him 2 years ago, and it was about his mother passing away when he was a teenager, and he actually wanted to quit football because his mom was the person that really pushed him and really motivated him and encouraged him in football. And then he decided that he would play for her, and he was a Division II athlete, overcame a lot of odds. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was undrafted. Yeah, he was undrafted, and he worked and worked, and he's obviously a smaller guy. Got cut by the Browns this year, and then went to Atlanta. And was it this year he got cut or last year?
It was this year.
It was this year, yeah. And then did what he did in Atlanta. But I mean, he worked up really hard, and he has a tattoo on his chest, literally right over his heart. And it's of his mom, and he said every day when he goes out there, he's trying to make her proud. So I thought it was just very heartwarming. So yeah, that story definitely did run, but it ran in Cleveland a couple years ago.
It would have been nice to run it again, right? I'm just saying, it would have felt real nice to just reach in the archives and run it again. It would have felt real nice.
Run it before the Super Bowl. We ran the story about Taylor.
Well, good. So one of the big stories out of the Super Bowl that doesn't involve my team embarrassing itself in front of a nation has been the deluge of players who are who are saying they're going to abstain from going to the White House. And I know the counterfactuals here that it's happened before, but very rarely is it reported upon. Very rarely is it made a public statement of. I know you and I follow each other on social media, and I think that we can agree that the idea of stick to sports is kind of dead in 2016.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Long is one of those players who decided not to go. And Chris Long is, for those who don't know, he's Howie Long's kid. His dad's in the Hall of Fame. He played at UVA, and he's a free agent going into the offseason. He decided to respond to some of the people who tweeted at him with some of their objections to his not wanting to go to the White House. They included respect the office, okay, birth of truth theory guy, stick to football. You don't look like a state senator yourself there, bud. I hope they cut you. He replied, I'm a free agent. Stop being self-important. I'm no longer a fan. I'm self-important, but you thought this was important enough to bring to my attention. And I want to find my favorite one. Hold on. Oh, come on. He had so many. He really just kind of went on a little tweet storm 2 days after Valentine's Day, and decided that he'd had enough of people telling him that he's stupid. The one person said, you should talk to Trump if you want change. He said, I'm skipping a photo op, not a congressional hearing. And while this is entertaining and great film and great visual for us to talk about, it's really interesting that of the 6 players of the Patriots who said that they weren't coming, the only one who felt the ability to clap back was the one who is as I said last week, a photo negative of the others?
I think that, athletes have been outspoken about social issues. Not all athletes, but athletes over time have been outspoken about social issues for a very long time. I mean, you think Muhammad Ali, you think Billie Jean King, Jim Brown here in Cleveland. That is part of it for some of these athletes. I think, for me, like, I can't talk about certain political things because I work for a news company, and that's not what we're allowed to do. So if the Patriots allow it, then he has the right to do it. Whether or not that's good for him or good for the Patriots, that's up for them to decide. But if his company is allowing it, if his boss is allowing it, then he has the freedom to chime back when he wants to. I know some teams ask the players, here in Cleveland, they ask them to be very careful what they say on Twitter, what they write back to fans. So there is some sort of censorship here in Cleveland about Twitter and what they say on social media and also what they say politically. We've had some controversy here with some athletes who've said some things that were pretty politically incorrect, and they've gotten in trouble for it. So, I mean, I think it's up to the teams to say, like, you work for our team, and this is the standard we have. And if their standard is, hey, you can say whatever you want, then the players have the right to say whatever they want.
I couldn't agree more. I do want to ask you about the lens of privilege here with Chris Long speaking back. And without getting too far into it, you are a woman in a very male-dominated industry. You have very openly chronicled some of your struggles, some of your triumphs. How does it feel to you? Because it feels a certain way to me when people ask just women about women's issues in sports trials. I'm like, shouldn't all people involved in sports care about this?
Yeah.
Is it like, even when I was thinking about putting this interview together, I was like, I want to ask her, but it feels exploitative and like empty for me. It feels like asking the black guy about a black thing in sports and not asking his white teammate next to him. It just feels strange, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all about perspective. So I have a unique perspective because I am a female in sports, and I think men in sports have a different perspective about women in sports because they don't walk in my shoes. And it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's not necessarily that they don't care. It's that you can't understand the perspective, or it's harder to see the perspective unless you're actually looking through the lens that I look through every day. So, I mean, I definitely think there are issues with women in sports. I mean, I've always kind of felt that that different traits are more valued for different genders. So in sports, I think women are definitely, their appearance is more important than maybe it is for a male sportscaster. I mean, there's so many different things that go into it we were going to talk about UConn and their accomplishments and how the women's team probably doesn't get the same recognition that a men's team would get. But sports is just a microcosm of our universe, and we see what's going on right now in our culture with women's rights, and so I think that it's just a mirror of what's going on with women's issues in our culture. There's inequality in sports, there's inequality in our culture and our society, and the two kind of just go hand in hand.
Before we move on, I just want to commend you on a super professional answer. That was great. That was a great answer. I loved it. But you mentioned it. We were going to talk about it. UConn women broke 100 this week, and if this is the first time you're hearing about it, yeah, that's kind of how it goes, man. Again, I feel weird asking the woman stuff on the show, but I just ask, you know what? For the sake of the show, we'll say you brought it up.
Okay.
They cracked 100 this week. It should have been a bigger story, in my opinion. It's a great standalone accomplishment. Do you think that their next ring, hopefully at the end of this year, will be a bigger story than the 100 straight wins, or why would that be? It's because normally in America we salute this kind of dominance. We saluted Michael Jordan's 8th ring. We loved it when the Cowboys were on top. We loved it, I guess, when the Knicks were like feasibly a good basketball team. Whatever.
Yeah, I think actually part of the problem with women's basketball is that there's UConn has been so dominant for so long, and it's always been UConn and Tennessee, right? Like those are the two women's basketball teams that seem to completely dominate women's college basketball. There's just so much. Those two teams are so legendary that it's almost to be expected. You expect that team to have these extraordinary accomplishments, and you expect Gino Auriemma to be a coach that could accomplish these feats. Do they deserve more credit? Of course they do. But they don't. Women's basketball overall doesn't have the same reach that men's basketball does. That the WNBA doesn't have the reach that the NBA does. So of course the WNBA finals doesn't have the same coverage that the NBA finals does. So it's about the reach, but I also think that the fact that there's been, the UConn has been such a dominant program for so long that it's almost like, okay, they're doing it again. Like, it's not a surprise. If it was a team that kind of came out of nowhere that was doing this, I think it might be a little bit bigger of a story. But because it's UConn, it's almost expected. It's expected that they have these incredible runs because it's really been for a long time, two really historic programs in women's college basketball, which is UConn and Tennessee, and of course for a long time they were rivals.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's like a victim of their own success type thing, but
yeah,
it's so weird because you hear people who say, "Oh, I don't like X, Y, or Z with the women's game." Meanwhile, whenever I'm not a college basketball fan, but when March Madness rolls around, I find myself more intrigued by the women's bracket than the men's, and the reason is because. And I guess I'm just a nerd and a narrative guy, but I like the fact that these women's teams generally stay together for 4 years. Like, there's a plot line and a storyline. The men's teams, it's so many of these guys are like, well, we got here in August and they'll be in the draft in April. And I'm like, well, and I don't want to sound like an old person decrying, like, that's why the men's game is down. There's a lot of reasons why I don't like the men's college basketball, and I find women's more entertaining. But one of them has to be the fact that these teams stay together for 4 years, that a woman at UConn who says, oh, I was part of a 100-win team, she was part of all 100 wins.
I mean, it's really like a true college team. It's a really true.
It's crazy, right? Program. It's so crazy to say out loud in 2017.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't thinking about the next step in women's college basketball. They're thinking about where they are right now. Whereas I think in the top men's programs, they're all thinking about when can I go to the NBA. So I think that there's more of a purity to the women's game. And I actually wrote for NBA.com and I wrote for WNBA.com. And truth be told, I actually enjoyed covering the WNBA.com a little bit more because the women were so accessible. They were open about their stories and they weren't making millions and millions of dollars. So they were just, you really felt like this is for the love of the game. Like, you really felt the passion for the game and the commitment to the game. And it wasn't about the endorsement deals or the big contracts, or there was just more of a purity to it and a really just genuine love for basketball and playing at the highest level that they could.
I will ride for women's college basketball, but I'm an NBA head. I'm sorry, I can't. That's a bridge too far for me. I'm an NBA guy. And speaking of the NBA, the national embarrassment that is the New York Knickerbockers continues. You grew up in New York area. Are you a New York Knicks fan?
I'm gonna plead the fifth.
That's a smart answer. Could you putting yourself in the shoes of a New York Knicks fan, whose side would you have taken in this Dolan Oakley kerfuffle? Because we got more news on it this week.
I mean, I don't even know what's going on at this point. It just seems like children, like, I'm like, I can't even follow it. My head's about to explode.
It's crazy.
It seems petty.
It does seem petty. And to add to the pettiness, Dolan, who came out very forcefully on New York radio last week saying that Oak was banned for life in a move we excoriated here on the podcast.
And now he's sorry.
And now he's saying that Oak's back. And so I question, PR 101, clearly they don't believe in ascribing that at all. But I think you're right, though. I wanted to ask how you feel about it, but you nailed it. This, at the end of the day, it feels petty and small and silly. And the more that comes out, like there was a video that's out, I guess hit Twitter an hour ago, but it's of security coming to Oakley before he's done anything. He's just sitting in his seat, and you watch it happen. I'm like, oh wow, you just made Jim Dolan looks really small, and he looks smaller by the second. And Oakley literally from the day one has been like, I don't know what's going on. They keep accusing me. They accuse him of having a drinking issue, which is really just, I said last week, it's strange coming from a man who's had battles with addiction. And it's just, the whole thing seems childish and petty, and I want to move on. I never want to hear about it again.
I am with you on that one. In fact, I have tried to avoid following it because it seems just so ridiculous.
It felt like the NBA story we needed to get us to the All-Star break.
And I mean, then Adam Silver stepped in because I think it just was embarrassing for the league at this point.
Oh, it was really was.
So I think he was just trying to squash it, make amends, and hopefully get everyone to move on, which obviously people aren't moving on as fast as the commissioner would like.
All right, so I got 3 Cleveland-related questions for you. You ready?
All right, go. Shoot.
All right, first one. What are we doing at quarterback for these Browns? Because you know what? I like Hugh Jackson. I like a lot of the guys in the front office. I worked in the league for a while, so I know a couple of those guys okay. Are we really going back with Bob?
I'm not. I think they won't because he's just proven to be honest, actually, I hope they won't because he's just proven to be injury prone. He can't stay healthy throughout his career. And what you really need at the quarterback position is consistency. Mm-hmm. And since I've been covering the Browns, this team has had anything but consistency.
It was before you covered them too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's very true. It's just been a revolving door, and he has talent, RG3, but he can't stay healthy to even bring that talent out.
Someone said to me when I was in college, staying healthy is a skill.
It is.
And if you can't do it, you can't apply the rest of your skills.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. So there's a name that's being floated right now based on some of the things that are happening in the Northeast, a name that may become available, a name that you're familiar with, Mr. Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that. Personally, I think Tyrod Taylor might be good for the team. I don't know that he's necessarily I think they would want someone with experience. I think they would want a veteran guy that has done it before, which is why I think they would try and get someone maybe in the draft, but not someone to come in and start right away. They want, I mean, they got someone like Cody Kessler that they could develop. Cody Kessler, I don't think is ever going to be a starting quarterback. I think he'll be a good number 2 option at some point. But I think Tyrod is somebody that they could potentially be interested in because of the experience, the fact that he's been there before, that he can move. I think he would work well with Hugh. He's a hard worker, and I think that's really important to Hugh is to have people that are going to be focused, hardworking, and determined, which Tyrod is all those things. So I could see him coming here just based on the fact that he has experience, he's done it before in the league, and that he does have mobility and some athletic well, I don't want to say some athletic. He has ability, but I don't know that he's a franchise quarterback, and that's what the Browns need. And I would love him to prove that he is. I think because I really do like Tyrod as a player, and I also know how hard he works, so I would love to see that. But a lot of quarterbacks are nervous to come to Cleveland because they see what happens when they come.
Yeah,
it's true. You talk.
Go ahead.
No, so you talk to these players, and a lot of them, the quarterbacks get nervous. I mean, obviously playing in the NFL is an opportunity, and everybody just wants an opportunity. But because of its history, I think it's harder to attract free agents.
I'll tell you what, man, I think you're 100% right. But Hugh Jackson's been good for quarterbacks in the past, and I hope that he gets a chance to do it again there because I think you guys could actually build something there. You've got a fan base that loves and cares, and if you guys lost, I don't know, after being up 28-3 in Super Bowl, maybe it wouldn't hurt so bad. Still hurts.
What's so crazy about Hugh Jackson is, so this team won 1 game this season, but you ask players, off the record, what do you think of Hugh? They really like him. You'd think in the midst of all that losing, they wouldn't have such a good rapport with their coach. And they
never felt like they quit on him.
They never quit on him, and he never quit on them. And he always, what the players I think liked is he never said, "Oh, it was that guy's fault that we lost. Oh, he messed up." He always took responsibility. He's like, "I'm the leader of this team. I'm the head coach. It's on me." And the players said to me, a lot of them just kind of in jest or off, not in jest, but off the record, and not really, in a official legit conference room setting, they said the guy you see in the press conference room is the same guy we get in the locker room. And that's not true with a lot of coaches. A lot of times you see press conference media perfect answers from the press conference. They have perfectly PR written statements to say to the media, and then they go to the locker room and they completely rip these guys apart. The players say that doesn't happen. They say that he is the same guy that you see out in the press conference. He's the same guy in the locker room. He puts it on them. I mean, he puts it on himself. He doesn't put it on them. And I think the players appreciate that.
I know I would. I know I always love coaches who are like that. Second of the Cleveland questions, these Kevin Love for Carmelo Anthony rumors, I don't know where they're coming from. I don't like them. I think LeBron's smarter than that basketball-wise. As someone who's on the ground in Cleveland, are there any legs to this?
Since the day I got into Cleveland, there's been talk of Kevin Love trade. There's always talk of Kevin Love trade. So it's kind of like I remember when they made a coaching change last year when they fired Blatt and hired Tyronn Lue, when they had a meeting, a couple of people thought the meeting was because they were going to trade Kevin Love. But so this whole Kevin Love being traded thing has been a thing for quite some time. And does LeBron have a say in what goes on in the organization? Of course. Yeah. Does LeBron want to play with Carmelo Anthony? Probably so. I mean, he's said it. So Kevin Love is just always the person they're going to pinpoint for a rumor for a trade because it's just been the talk since I've gotten here. Kevin Love has kind of been the target. And there's some people say that he doesn't fit the system perfectly well. I mean, now he's injured, so it's
pre-scope, he's having a great season for the Cavs. I've loved the way they've incorporated him on the offensive end, rebounding defensively, and being that outlet guy. Like, that's one of his best skills. There's probably like 4 or 5 people in the history of the NBA who can throw an outlet pass that well.
And I think because he does so much, he does offer a lot of value in terms of trade value. So I think that's also why he gets pulled into these conversations about trade rumors. But, I mean, it's one of those things where they're going to keep talking about it until it happens, if it happens.
Right. We've got another week left of it, so hopefully you can all make it through intact. And Love will come back from that knee scope better than ever so that I can watch the Cavs hopefully not go down 3-1, but still win an NBA title this year. That's right, giving up on the Hawks. It was all a pipe dream. Yeah, look, I know you can't jinx anything. I can't jinx it either because, well, maybe I can. I'm a Falcons fan. Who knows? I might just put a stink on you guys. You don't watch All-Star Saturday Night, and that's fine, and I respect that. I just want to
put it out there.
No, because there are 2 types of people in the world. There are people who literally are like, oh yeah, Saturday night, yeah, that's the thing, and people like me whose entire years are built around All-Star Saturday. I think it's so. When I was in high school, I was a wrestler, and state finals were always fell around All-Star weekend. So I would always have to catch All-Star Saturday night on tape delay the next day, and I had to watch it before the game. And then in college, I had a girlfriend for a lot of college, and so our Valentine's days were always very nice days that were interspliced with me trying to watch a dunk contest while we were like having drinks.
How romantic.
I never said I was romantic. I just said, look, it happened. I'm willing to own up. I've moved past it. I'm happily engaged. She looks past these faults, and thankfully they're booking the All-Star game a week after Valentine's Day now. It's super helpful to me. But I'll tell you what, this Saturday was underwhelming for me. The three-point contest was very mad. They've done this thing where they're moving the bonus rack so you can choose where your extra set of shots come from. I think that's weird. The skills competition, Porzingis won. The basketball realist in me is very excited about potential Porzingis. The other basketball realist in me notices that he averages like 7 fouls per 35 minutes, so it's pretty untenable to have him on the court for long stretches. Mm-hmm. And then the dunk contest, which after last year, Lauren, I lied to myself. I was convinced it was back. I said these young men have taken the pride that was the dunk contest and brought the luster back.
Well,
and
Twitter told me otherwise.
Last night if last year was the grand reopening, this was the grand closing, man. It was so bad. You had Aaron Gordon trying to catch one off of a drone that he did like 7 times, and I wanted to be excited, Lauren. This is something I look forward to. This is the joke is about All-Star Weekend. They want to do a documentary on the All-Star City called "Where'd the White People Go?" And it's the blackest Super Bowl in the world, and we couldn't get a good dunk contest again. Do I have any hope for a future dunk contest?
I hope your fiance was there to console you last night.
She was. She was just disappointed as I was. We're a perfect match, I'm telling you.
Yes, apparently you are.
Do I have any hope for a future of potentially getting another dunk contest we're talking to someone about?
Yeah, I mean, I think you do. I think people grow up watching the dunk contest, and I think that there are athletes out there that want to surpass what's been done in the past and have that zest for the dunk contest. I mean, it's not going to be every year and you have to get the right guys in it, but I definitely think that at some point you'll have another good dunk contest.
I'll tell you what, it felt, watching Aaron Gordon try to catch it from the drone felt like the Dwight Howard one with the Superman cape. Like, it was just like,
I like the Dwight Howard one, the Superman cape.
I didn't. I'm not. I don't know.
I
It just
remember
felt like
the contest.
it felt like someone was actually jumping over a shark. It just felt the whole thing was over, man. All right. Well, before we get out of here, I got two final questions for you. The first one is: do you have an MVP of the week you want to talk about on the show?
So I do a lot of stories for my station. So I do a lot of inspirational stories and stories about athletes in our community. And this week I did a story about a young man who has a liver disease. And he was never supposed to walk, never supposed to talk. He actually wasn't able to play organized sports. And then this year his doctor cleared him. He got stronger and healthier. So I did a story on him this week, and he is one of those people who you talk to him and he makes you want to be better. He obviously now can not only walk and talk, but he is an A and B student, and he's on the JV team at Brush High School out here in Northeast Ohio, and he hit a buzzer beater in his game this week, so I'm making him my MVP.
See, now I look small and petty because you gave this like long magnanimous MVP, and mine is Randy Moss because he's 40, and I like long touchdown passes, and that's it.
Okay.
Like mine was like Randy Moss. Well, there you go, have it, guys. Lauren just sunned me on my own show. Lauren, will you tell the people where they can find your stuff online, if they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, follow me on social media at Lauren Brill 5, LAUREN, B as in boy, RILL, and then the number 5. And then I have a Facebook page, Lauren Brill, and you can find my work on my station's website, WEWS.com. But yeah, definitely check out my Twitter, my Facebook, and I post my stories on there and links to everything that I do. So hopefully you'll check it out.
Lauren, thank you so much for coming on. Are you going to reunions this spring?
Probably not.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. Like, I've got like 2 friends' weddings. I'm like, I don't know.
I love going to reunions too. It's so much fun to see everybody, but I never actually go because I never can. But I love it.
Well, all
I
right.
went to the 5-year reunion of the class before us.
Of course you did. Those were all those were your best friends, though.
Yeah, all my best friends were a year or 2 years older, so I went to their reunions, but not my own.
That's amazing. Hey, well, last question. Did you watch pro wrestling growing up?
Did I watch a little bit when I was really, really young, like 6, 7 years old, but not too much after that.
I'm doing an informal poll of people who did watch when we were kids. All right, well, this has been Unanimous Decision, UDPod. You can follow us on Twitter at UDPod. Use the hashtag UDPod when talking about the show. I'm your host, DPalm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Visit our sponsor, Tweaked Audio. Visit the entire network. Follow them on Twitter at the MTR Network. That was your show. This is your outro. See you next week.